It is the 15th of January. We are mid-month into the first month of the new year, and there has been a big change in some of the setups that I was looking at since my last update, and also change in my opinions on some things and some, warnings, some, red flags out there. So I'm going to spend some time talking about it because it's been a very, very unusual market and unusual situation. I've tried to deal with it as best as possible, but some of the observations that we've seen come up, which has caused the most recent turn in the market, is very, very noteworthy. So very, very clearly in all the updates that I was putting out over the last 6 months, I was looking for potential upside, that at some point of time there would be support, whether it was 23,500, 24,500, 25,500, and I thought we would head higher. Now that sort of worked out because we were watching what has worked historically, which is that institutional positions, when they are at an extreme, both on the FI and DI side, they actually end up resulting in the markets heading higher. There's just one big change that we've seen in the behavior of this data, which I will highlight. And this data continued to work, but not resulting in a complete reversal of sentiment. That means that if I just go back to June of 2022, now before I go deeper into that, some of you will say, oh, I'm already getting technical, क्योंकि बहुत लोग जो मेरी बातों को सुनते हैं, they want to actually know कि भाई मैं बोलना क्या चाह रहा हूँ। सो बोलने की बात यह है कि बाज़ार जो है तेज़ी के माहौल में था कई महीनों तक, बट ऑल ऑफ अ सडन ये जो हमने करेक्शन सबसे अभी देखा है जनवरी के पहले हफ्ते में, इसने इस माहौल को काफ़ी हद तक बिगाड़ा है। अभी कुछ लोग मुझे नवंबर दिसंबर में भी कह रहे थे कि माहौल बिगड़ा है, क्योंकि व्हाट रियली एंडेड अप हैपनिंग इज़ लॉट ऑफ स्टॉक स्टार्टेड टू फॉल. आई स्टिल डिड नॉट चेंज माई व्यू, बिकॉज रिमेंबर देयर इज़ अ व्यू एट अ स्टॉक लेवल एंड देयर इज़ अ व्यू एट एन इंडेक्स लेवल. जब इंडेक्स में करेक्शंस आते हैं, और हम लोग उसको एलियट वेव्स में बोलते हैं 3 वेव करेक्शन, मतलब ABC की तरह मार्क करते हैं, इसका मतलब है कि तेज़ी में करेक्शन है. तो इस तरह वाले जो करेक्शंस हैं वो ही आ रहे थे सितंबर से अक्टूबर नवंबर में जितने करेक्शन आए. Unfortunately, we were not getting the big move up. So this pattern continued and continued and continued till we actually broke certain levels and made a lower low during the last 1 week. And now that we have made a lower low, जब हमने पिछले जो lows है उनको तोड़ दिया है, तो हमें सोच विचार करना पड़ रहा है कि क्या ये एक बड़ा रिवर्सल है. इसके कुछ संकेत ऑलरेडी आ चुके हैं, कुछ ऐसी चीज़ें हैं जो मैं अभी फिर से आई गो बैक टू दैट डेटा पॉइंट दैट आई वाज टॉकिंग अबाउट, बट एटलीस्ट इतना तो मैंने आपको बता दिया दैट 2026, as much as I expected would be the best year coming, has started on a bad note, which only means that things will get worse before they get better. So even if they have to get better, they'll probably get worse. There's also risk that it's far worse than even I'm imagining, because sometimes I think it'll be far better than I'm imagining, and then I think it'll be far worse than I'm imagining. But the problem is that there's risk and we have to manage that risk. So we cannot know how deep that risk is, because this is, the world is awash in so many different ways, whether it's liquidity, whether it's geopolitics. There's so much happening that some of it is hard to discount. Now, if the markets accept it and discount it in a certain way, we take it well. But when some things stop happening as expected, then it makes you think. So up to a point of time, I say कि नहीं, ये temporary है, हो जाएगा. पर एक point के बाद वो हो जाएगा, चलता नहीं है. Okay. So yes, I'm taking from a bullish view to a bearish view. There's also a seasonal part to it, कि हम लोग मंदी में जब आ रहे हैं तो जनवरी, फरवरी और मार्च का जो महीना है वो टिपिकली बेरिश रहता है. ये सीजनैलिटी आप स्ट्राइक प्लेटफॉर्म पे देख सकते हैं. मोमेंट यू गो टू निफ्टी ऑन द स्ट्राइक प्लेटफॉर्म, यू टाइप निफ्टी 50, उसके सेकेंड हाफ ऑफ द स्क्रीन पे जो निफ्टी 50 का स्क्रीन खेलता है, देयर इज अ सीजनैलिटी चार्ट. देयर सीजनैलिटी फॉर एवरी स्टॉक ऑल्सो, बट फॉर निफ्टी 50 इफ यू ओपन इट, इफ यू एक्सपैंड दैट विंडो, इट अलाउज यू टू प्लॉट इट एज अ लाइन ग्राफ. आई लाइक टू सी द लाइन ग्राफ. उसमें ये पता चलता है कि जो 10-12 साल का डेटा है उसमें सबसे ख़राब महीने, ख़राब का मतलब ये नहीं है नेगेटिव, ख़राब मतलब जिसमें सबसे कम रिटर्न्स आते हैं और एक आध नेगेटिव भी आता है, वो जैन फेब मार्च के बीच में होता है. सो दिस इज़ अ पीरियड वेर यू यूजुअली डोंट गेट वेरी गुड रिटर्न्स. जो बेस्ट होना था अगर, या इसका ऑपोजिट होना था, तो हमें दिसंबर की रैली को कंटिन्यू रखना था. वो जो फर्स्ट वीक ऑफ जनवरी में सेलिंग आई और उसने वो पैटर्न को बिगाड़ा, दैट शुड नॉट हैव हैपेंड. तो अब ये अगर हो चुका है तो मैं अब ये तो नहीं बोल सकता हूँ कि ऐसा कुछ नया होने वाला है. ये 2 हफ्ते पहले तक लग रहा था कि चलो कुछ नया हो सकता है, अब नहीं हो रहा. सो दिस चेंज ऑफ व्यू इज़ वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. Some people are not open-minded to changing views. Some people think that if you're always bullish, you should remain bullish. So they keep listening to you for bullish views only. I'm sorry, I'm not that guy. Because I keep changing my view. I change my view, but I don't change it every day. That's a misconception that only the trolls will tell me. 6 महीने से हम लोग यही बोल रहे थे ऊपर आएगा, और जब zigzag करते कहते गलत है. But it actually came up. We hit an all-time high in the first week of January. So therefore, I don't consider that wrong. But what I do consider is I expected it to be a bigger runaway move. That didn't happen. It ended up being a slow and continued move, and also very, very stock specific. So if you picked the right stocks, you made money. If you did not pick the right stocks, you didn't make money. So a lot of individual stocks I picked in June, July did very well. But after November, December, trying to do the same thing did not work. And also November, December is when we've launched our RA services as research analysts. So what we've been trying to do, some of it looked good, some of it didn't. But I'm quickly taking all the trades off the table because that's how I am. I'm very, very adept. I'm not going to stick to it and say कि नहीं होएगा. बाजार बदल गया, मैं भी बदल गया. And there will be another opportunity to make money. It's unfortunate that it took us 8-9 months to start the service, and in that the market went from 21,000 to 26,000. So it only gives us an opportunity to exit everything and show the opposite side of the story, that if we have to be on the sell side, we can even do that, or create cash right now. All I'm saying is it's time to start creating cash. I know some people created cash in October, November. Some people have been sitting on it for 2 years and have gone to foreign markets. My problem is that foreign markets in the short term may have been a savior, but eventually we are now in that zone where global and domestic markets can both fall together. So irrespective where you're investing, there is risk. Okay, तो ये भी बात समझ लो कि it's not just कि भारत गिरेगा और दुनिया नहीं गिरेगी. We have crossed that point where India was underperforming the world. Now we are reaching that point where India falls and world falls. क्योंकि वहाँ की भी तीजी पूरी हो रही है, बहुत चल गई, और यहाँ पे तो हम लोग ऐसे ही मरे हुए थे, फिर भी हम धीरे धीरे ऊपर आए, कहीं ना कहीं कुछ ना कुछ खींच के, अब वो भी दम खत्म हो गया है. सो देयरफॉर द होल वर्ल्ड इज़ इन ट्रबल. नाउ लेट्स अंडरस्टैंड ईच ऑफ द सिचुएशन. मैंने सीजनैलिटी वाला तो बता ही दिया. दैट इज़ अ सिंपल रीज़न वाई टू कंसिडर दिस current sell-off that we are seeing in early Jan as a sign that maybe the entire quarter is going to be bad. Now that is a simple way to start. So let's create some cash for this quarter. Now how bad can it become is the second part of the question, and becomes harder and harder to answer. So you create cash as you go along. You start with a minimum 20-30% and then you build more if things get worse. Now how do you look for things getting worse? Now here are two macro data points I was looking for both in global markets and in Indian markets. Some have not confirmed, but they have not confirmed either way. Say for example interest rates. Interest rates को नीचे आना चाहिए था, आए भी but नहीं भी आए. For example US ने इंटरेस्ट रेट का दर ज़रूर कम किया, इंडिया RBI ने भी रेट कम किया, बट बॉन्ड डील्स कम नहीं हो रहे हैं. सो यू सी देयर इज़ अ गैप. सो देन दिस गैप हैज़ टू बी फिल्ड बाय government intervention. US has already started to buy treasury bonds. India has announced OMOs to buy bonds, and that means we are infusing liquidity through bond buying. Commodity markets are very happy about this. So gold and silver keep going up, and initially it was not driving up base metal prices. Now it is even driving up base metal prices. So good, that part of the deal is also done. क्या भाई कहीं ना कहीं से liquidity आ ही जाएगी. But despite all this, bond markets are not relenting, which means interest rate bond market में कम नहीं हो रहे हैं. चाहे आप OMO कर लो, चाहे US bond buy कर ले. Similarly, dollar should be falling, but the dollar is going up. If it stays up, probably the weekly RMI also will turn bullish on the dollar index. And similarly on the USDINR also, weekly, monthly indicators are turning bullish again. Monthly is already bullish. So this is what is happening is, despite all thoughts, we are not getting the negative sell-off signals in currency and bond markets. And therefore, given how much time I have waited for it to happen, like for 6 months I've been saying होएगा, gold की तेजी भी हो गई, and अभी भी dollar fall नहीं कर रहा है जिस तरह की होना चाहिए. The way gold is going up, that's how the dollar should be falling, but it is not happening. And now since I've spoken about gold and silver have become extremely overbought on monthly charts. Yes, I have missed the last $20 on silver, saying it is actually gold was overbought. So actually there I have been more right because it's not gone up that much. Silver, the RSI, when I first saw it, was still early 80s. And I thought if gold is already at 91, शायद silver नहीं चलेगा. But silver said नहीं मुझे भी 90 आना है. Now silver's monthly RSI is also 92, 93, and gold is also stayed at 92 without coming down. So now both are simultaneously extremely overbought. I'm not worried about missing the next $10. I'm not participating in gold and silver. You might say I'm wrong, but for those who know, I was writing about bullish gold and silver in 2015. At $1,000, I gave a target of $3,000. I've written Sher Khan reports, done multiple webinars on this 10 years ago. So now when my targets are reached, cross and monthly RSIs are overbought, I think I have the liberty of saying, बहुत हो गया, मुझे नहीं पार्टिसिपेट करना है. Okay, unless there is a correction. Now I am very happy that the commodity cycle has picked up in base metals, and that's celebratory. I also added many value wave investments, that is our own RA recommendations in metal stocks. Last week we have closed them out. I am scared of something else. I'm not saying कि metal, the commodity cycle can't pick up, because US metal index is also, broken out and started to move up. I am worried about the knee-jerk reaction that a sell-off in gold and silver might eventually bring due to this over bullish positioning, that will cause other commodity prices to also correct, which means that eventually you might see base metals also sell off. Base metals meaning that the sell-off in gold and silver can also have a net impact on copper, aluminium, zinc, and many other of these, metal and commodity prices. So that is the eventual risk I'm actually looking at. So I think even if the commodity cycle longer term is picking up, it might be worth taking a step back, letting that corrective process unfold before we really go overboard on this, and that is what I'm really talking about. So as you notice, there was a lot of background noise kicking in, so I've just changed my location. But continuing on the discussion, that it is this extreme in the positioning of the commodity market, specifically precious metals, that has gotten scary. Okay, that doesn't mean they can't keep going up. Both sides are scary. Now see, precious metals, when they go up like this, irrespective, ignoring overbought conditions and extreme bullish sentiment, they're also sensing that is something going wrong. At the same time, any knee-jerk reaction there causes the entire commodity complex to come off, which is trying to break out and create a new wave. So there's a dual side risk I see, which impacts liquidity, because the precious metal market has a direct bearing on the liquidity situation. And if new highs in gold and silver are not accompanied by new lows in the dollar index, that is an intermarket divergence. So many intermarket divergences, same like between Nifty and Nifty 500. A new high in Nifty, all-time high in the first week of January, not confirmed by the Nifty 500. A new high in the S&P 500, early part of this month, not confirmed by the Nasdaq, and so on and so forth. So many intermarket divergences domestically and globally, all pointing that this is a time to reduce your risk in risk assets. So if you've been involved in risk assets, they've done well, it's a time to take 2 steps back. And that could be for multiple reasons. Now you see, I'll give you one final data point which I started with, and I said let me go to the other data points before I give this one to you. So जो लोग हिंदी में सुन रहे हैं, मैं broadly उनको बता देता हूँ कि मैं कहना ये चाह रहा हूँ कि जितने खरीदारी में जितने भी हम लोग एसेट्स लेते हैं, चाहे वो सोना, चांदी, कमोडिटीज़, इक्विटी है, ये सब में ऐसे डाइवर्जेंसेस हैं अलग अलग सेगमेंट्स में जो कि कोरिलेटेड रहते हैं. जैसे कि जब सोना चांदी का भाव बढ़ता है तो डॉलर घटता है. अब डॉलर घट नहीं रहा है, ये डाइवर्जेंस हो गया. सिमिलरली रुपया का भाव घट रहा है, मार्केट नहीं गिर रहा है. निफ्टी 500 नया हाई नहीं बना रहा है जबकि निफ्टी ने नया हाई बनाया. से S&P और नैस्डैक में भी ऐसा ही डाइवर्जेंस. तो ये सब डाइवर्जेंसेस जो हैं संकेत ऐसा दे रहे हैं कि कहीं ना कहीं कुछ गड़बड़ है और हमें अपना बाज़ारों में रिस्क कम करना चाहिए. तो दिस इज़ द बेसिक पॉइंट टू बी मेड, एंड देन वी ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट दैट रिस्क माइट बी. नाउ लेट मी लुक एट वन फाइनल डेटा पॉइंट. ये है फॉरेन इन्वेस्टर्स का पोजीशनिंग से मैं कैश मार्केट की बात नहीं कर रहा हूँ, मैं बात कर रहा हूँ इंडेक्स फ्यूचर्स का. तो शुरू में भी मैंने बताया कि कुछ डेटा पॉइंट्स हैं जो एक्सट्रीम पे काम करते थे, and these data points for the positioning of DIIs, FIIs and client. So whenever clients are excessively long, the market bottoms. When FI is extremely short, market bottoms. Opposite side, if clients are short, market tops, and so on. This kind of studies which we have done, and we have the entire historical data on the Strike platform. जो लोग Strike money का इस्तेमाल कर रहे हैं उस पर पूरे चार्ट्स हैं, ट्रेडिंग व्यू पे हमने इंटीग्रेट किए हुए हैं. तो आप पूरा 2012 जब से NSE ने डेटा दिया आप देख सकते हैं. तो लॉन्ग शॉर्ट पोजीशन का उल्टा ही होता है. बट एक बार ऐसा हुआ था जो उससे उल्टा नहीं हुआ और वो डायरेक्शनल हो गया था, और वो समय था कोविड. दूसरा ऐसा समय शायद हमारे सामने आज खड़ा है. तो कोविड में क्या हुआ था वो मैं पहले बताता हूँ कि व्हेन द सेल ऑफ स्टार्टेड उसके पहले FIIs had cut their shorts and started mildly, they had just gone long but they didn't stay long. Moment market started falling, they went short. And within the first week of March they had the highest short position ever. अब उस चीज़ को देखने शायद मैं बुलिश भी हो सकता था, but within 10 days lockdowns were announced. SEBI came out and said no more short selling allowed on the 13th, I think, of March of 2020. And so FIIs couldn't add to their already all-time high shorts at that point of time. But yes, that is the last time they had a directional short position on India, and India actually collapsed. So instead of reading that short position as sign of a bottom, it was sign of a further big selling coming, which they had hedged themselves against. Of course, they hedge, so their positioning is not directional. But I say directional meaning that it is an opinion that actually worked. So 99% of the time उल्टा करना काम करता है, बट वो कोविड एक से समय था जबकि वो डायरेक्शनल हो गया. अब इसी डेटा पॉइंट को हम लोग पिछले 6 महीने में देखते हैं कि येस इट वाज वर्किंग, एवरी टाइम दे वर शॉर्ट, मार्केट कवर्ड, इट वेंट अप, अगेन इट वेंट डाउन, अगेन इट वेंट अप. बट 3-4 महीनों से FI अपना शॉर्ट काट नहीं रही थी. 1.5 लाख 2 लाख कॉन्ट्रैक्ट के बीच में घूम रहा था. ये डेटा थोड़ा एडजस्ट हुआ है क्योंकि कॉन्ट्रैक्ट साइजेस चेंज हुए हैं रिसेंटली. सो जैसे ये कॉन्ट्रैक्ट साइज चेंज किया हमने भी डेटा एडजस्ट किया, और जो नया डेटा अब आया है इसमें इन्होंने ये जनवरी का जो फर्स्ट वीक में जो सेल ऑफ आया, दे हैव क्विकली गॉन टू एन ऑल टाइम हाई शॉर्ट, एंड आर वीकली मोमेंटम इंडिकेटर्स आर गोइंग इनटू सेल. मंथली अभी भी, मंथली तो ऑलरेडी सेल में है. द लास्ट टाइम दिस वाज ट्रू वाज कोविड. मंथली वाज इन सेल, वीकली वेंट इन सेल, levels broke, and FIIs were short in the first week of March. The only difference is that time we had a known thing happening in the background, whether we believed it or not, कि कोविड आ रहा है. हमने सोचा था शायद होगा, नहीं होगा, लॉकडाउन के बारे में डाउट था, बट कोविड का पता तो चल गया था. इस बार कोविड तो नहीं है, सेबी FII को रोकने नहीं वाली है शॉर्ट से, शॉर्ट ऑलरेडी खड़ा है. वॉट इज़ गोइंग टू बी दैट इवेंट देन दैट इज़ गोइंग टू कम अप? तो इफ़ वी आर नॉट एबल टू थिंक ऑफ एनी मेडिकल रीजन, वॉट एल्स कुड इट बी? The only thing happening in the world is something geopolitical. Some geopolitical events are happening which we are not able to extrapolate कि ये geopolitics का आगे जाके असर क्या होगा. पोजीशन खड़ा है FII का, और ऐसा पोजीशन उन्होंने भारत पे क्यों लिया है वो हमें पूरी तरह नहीं समझ में आएगा. हम लोग सिर्फ टैरिफ सोच रहे हैं, बट मैं सोच रहा हूँ कुछ ग्लोबल जियोपॉलिटिकल एंगल भी हो सकता है, क्योंकि ग्लोबल मार्केट्स में भी अब डाइवर्जेंस बन गए हैं, गोल्ड सिल्वर में डाइवर्जेंस बन गया है. तो ये डोमेस्टिक प्रॉब्लम नहीं रही. हम ये भी देख रहे हैं कि पॉलिसी में कितना डाइवर्जेंस है. एक तरफ हम लोग कह रहे हैं रशिया से वॉर बंद करो, दूसरी तरफ US जो है वेनेजुएला में घुस के अपना काम कर रहा है, कह रहा है कि मैं ग्रीनलैंड भी ले लूँगा, और दूसरे को कह रहा है आप इधर से हट जाओ. सो देयर आर लॉट ऑफ डाइवर्जेंसेस इन दीज ओपिनियंस विच अस एज लेमैन कैन नॉट रियली अंडरस्टैंड कि ये करना क्या चाह रहा है. क्योंकि एक तरफ आप कह रहे हो ये सब बंद करो, दूसरी तरफ आप खुद वो भी चीज़ कर रहे हो. इसका एंड रिजल्ट क्या होगा? चाइना कहीं ना कहीं कुछ तो कुछ कह रहा है कि ये गलत है, मत करो. अगर यहाँ पे बहुत बड़े अगर कोई जियोपॉलिटिकल डिफरेंसेस सामने आ गए, देन द नेचर ऑफ द वर्ल्ड ओनली कम्प्लीटली चेंजेस. दैट इज़ वन पार्ट. Second is if some kind of a deflationary event happens in the short term, which is what will cause gold, silver to fall and dollar to go up. It could be anything, including this Supreme Court decision. I don't know what it will be. They are not announcing it. But if they announce something which goes against Trump in a very big way, then what is the net conclusion? Some people will think that if the tariffs are gone, it's good for India. But imagine that it also is bad for the US. Some people discussed this with me on Twitter, saying that how was it good for US tariff and how is it bad for it now, or good, it was always bad. I understand that argument, but US was trying to pitch it in a way कि हमें जो ये टैक्स लगा के, ये टैरिफ इज़ बेसिकली एन इम्पोर्ट टैक्स, राइट. इंडिया में हम लोग कहते हैं इम्पोर्ट ड्यूटी, वो उसको टैरिफ के नाम से बोल रहा है. Whatever name you give it, it was a revenue source for them. India already has a revenue source from import duties. US didn't have, now they are creating. They thought that will help them reduce their debt, as long as demand in the world remains strong. And demand will remain strong because there's liquidity. They are printing money, India's printing money, China's printing money, everybody's stimulating. So demand was not a fear. More revenue would have helped them. Now if you take away that revenue, so then their debt problem gets highlighted all over again, which they were trying to solve. And how will they solve it? So they'll have to cut interest rates eventually. But in the short term, it will cause bond markets to get a shock. They'll say, अरे ये पैसा तो आने नहीं वाला है, तो फिर अब क्या है, अब तो बॉन्ड का प्रॉब्लम है क्योंकि पैसा नहीं आने वाला है, तो बॉन्ड्स कैन फॉल इन द वेरी शॉर्ट टर्म, डॉलर कैन स्पाइक इन द शॉर्ट टर्म इफ देयर इज अ नेगेटिव सुप्रीम कोर्ट रूलिंग in case of the US. Now we can say, oh, this is good for India, but in the short term, if the dollar spikes and bonds fall, it will have a rub-off effect on all other markets. Just like the announcement of tariffs had a rub-off effect. Was it good for US and bad for others, or good for others, bad for US? US also fell, others also fell. So a similar thing happens here on the other end, because eventually the world has accepted the idea that tariffs are good for US, and since they have done trade deals with the US, it's good for us. Except for India, okay, we don't have a deal, but think of from a global perspective. So now suddenly you take it away. You said you converted tariffs into a good thing for the whole world. Psychologically, all markets went to all-time high. Some of them are up 40-60%, and now you take it away. So then what? So the opposite again happens, that now what was good is bad. This is unfortunately how markets work. This is just my thinking. If it doesn't work out that way, we will go back to this topic, but I am saying this is just one angle. I am saying I don't know the angle. हमें पता ही नहीं कि ये जो सेटअप है सोने चांदी का एक्सट्रीम, कमोडिटी मार्केट की कोशिश, और डॉलर और बॉन्ड मार्केट का फेलियर, ओके, एंड मोमेंटम इंडिकेटर्स जो कि यूएस और इंडिया दोनों में वीकली डिग्री पे सेल पे चल रहे हैं, ये सब का जो ओवरऑल सेटअप है, ये किस चीज़ को डिस्काउंट कर रहा है? एफआईआई का इंडिया में शॉर्ट पोजीशनिंग. There is some event which we are not able to read. There are many different things happening in the world. So the easiest answer for me was geopolitical. Now even tariff and Supreme Court, all this comes part of geopolitical because it's global now. These events, even though some of them are US based, are not regional. Russia is global. China, if it goes into Taiwan, is a global event. If US goes into Greenland, is a global event. So there are a lot of geopolitical global risks, and we don't know how others will respond to these movements, and what kind of a global environment will get created. And so coming back to the main point, I am saying कि इस चीज़ का डर लग गया. In fact, India VIX, a lot of people were telling me in December when I was still sounding bullish, sir, India VIX reached 11, 10, 9, eventually it reached 8.9%. So it was the lowest India VIX reading in probably years, and since the previous market top that it made last time, probably a year back, or more than that. So we've had, so that lowest VIX reading was a sign that yes, you could have made a top, but because you were at an all-time high, I didn't jump to that conclusion. Because this time I was early, but late, but it's never too late. You know, if you're one week late to change your view, I don't call that late. I just call that other people trolling you for being late, like as if they were early. They didn't even catch the rally all the way up because they were bearish for months. So it can be argued both ways. So that is how this world works. People always pointing fingers in our world. But it's more important to know what action to take when. So like I said, some people went into cash in October. Now they are buying stocks, but they are still cautiously buying large caps. One fund was there with their YouTube interviews saying that. So I am feeling that now it's time to go cash. It was not earlier. Now it is more broadly कि large cap भी give up कर रहा है. अब मैं large cap भी क्यों लूँ? पहले ये था कि मैं I could have hidden somewhere. Now the places to hide have reduced. I know there are still some stocks going up. Metals are still rising right now. ICICI Bank is trying to rise, and some stocks on the side, but many others are slowly giving up, which were trying to go up. So there are lots of room where failure has happened, and the pickup is not really coming across, including PSU stocks, which I thought would do well. Some are still doing well, but there are others which are failing again. So I'm slightly confused whether how this thing will work, but it's possible. See, this is budget month. कई बार PSU stocks में rally आ जाती है. So I will not base my entire view on one sector. क्योंकि निफ्टी तो तब भी गिर रही है, irrespective कि कुछ चल रहा है कुछ गिर रहा है, क्योंकि रिलायंस घट रहा है. तो इवन इफ एनटीपीसी गोज अप, रिलायंस गोज डाउन, नेट निफ्टी कहीं नहीं जा रहा. सो इफ यू आर स्टडिंग मार्केट ट्रेंड, द मार्केट इज हेडिंग डाउन. रोटेशन इज स्टिल गोइंग ऑन, बट दैट रोटेशन हैज गॉन फ्रॉम alpha generation to distribution. That is how I am seeing this market. So now we've gone from alpha generation to distribution. I don't want to take that alpha risk to try and find those 10 stocks that are going up. Earlier it was 30, it was still possible. Now it's down to 10, so it has become even harder. So then from a probability perspective, it doesn't make sense to try and find 10 out of 100. It's better to go with 90 are falling, let's stay away. So that's the shift in mindset that I've made and I've had to make. The next shift will probably only happen till March. Between now and then I perceive risk, and I don't know whether that risk is for 1,000 points, 2,000 points or more, because we don't know the reason. We don't know whether it's going to be domestic, geopolitical, just a routine correction, or something bigger happening at a global scale. And so till we know those reasons and it becomes more clear to us, create room on the downside to be able to buy. And so the starting point for that room, like I said, is 20-30% cash is the requirement. And then you increase it as you become more clear as to what is going wrong. Each one to his own. I might even start with a bigger number, who knows, because I am comfortable getting out, getting in. For those who are not, there are different numbers. For others, there are hedges. You can even have 1 year Nifty puts are very, very cheap, as some of my derivative friends tell me. So you go out and buy December 2026 puts, and that hedges you for the rest of the year. So many different strategies that you can take, when markets start looking dangerous to, solve your problem. The point is not, the point is that you take action. Okay, so you take some kind of action based on your situation to de-risk yourself. Not taking action is not acceptable. So that's the point. Whether jaldi kiya late kiya ka question ही नहीं है. You're barely 2% away from the top. So late और जल्दी का सवाल नहीं होता है. ये होता है कि आपको कुछ अगर दिख रहा है तो आप उसके लिए क्या एक्शन लोगे. वो बाद में लेने का फ़ायदा नहीं है. So after it falls 2,000 points and I tell you to do this, then it makes no sense. And I'm always ahead of the curve. So when I say things, sometimes they don't immediately happen. They happen later. And there are other times where I say things after they started to happen soon enough so that you can take action. So this is, I think, one of those moments where I think I've, rather than saying top, I've waited for the top, rolled over, and now I'm calling it. Okay, versus, sometimes we are ahead and I say it will bottom, like I was saying in Feb of last year. It went up in March, then again crashed in April, and then actually went up. And by that time, when there's up and down process, sometimes we get scared, will it actually go up? Because the news becomes bad. But usually close to the bottom, the news is usually the worst. Similarly, close to the top, the news is the best. Like India's GDP going to 7.5% for this year. News is best. But there are many other unresolved issues where it's not best, right? Earnings growth is still not at peak cycle. I was hoping it would pick up, but still for this quarter not picking up. And aage ka depends a lot on government spending and many other factors which have not kicked in yet. So I think pay attention to the seasonality, de-risk, and I'll continue to update you as other factors confirm. And we should get a clearer idea on the bigger picture as it unfolds. So I hope I've given you a lot of insights. सबको समझने की शायद समझने पड़ेगी कि ये जो ओवरऑल स्टेटस डेवलप हुआ है, ये क्यों हुआ है, कहाँ से हुआ है. आप कमेंट्स में सवाल भी पूछ सकते हैं. मे बी आई विल मेक additional video on this as it unfolds. बट आज के तारीख में टू मेनी मूविंग पार्ट्स, कई ऐसी चीज़ें, कुछ हम समझ सकते हैं, नहीं समझ सकते हैं, बट अनसर्टेनिटी में बेस्ट है कि आप अपने आप को प्रोटेक्ट करें, संभाल लें, हेजेस ले लें, या तो कैश क्रिएट करें या निफ्टी पुट्स लेके हेज कर लें अगर आप लॉन्ग टर्म इन्वेस्टर हैं जो बेचना नहीं चाहता. कॉस्ट ऑफ हेजिंग इज़ वेरी वेरी लो. एक साल के पुट्स 2% के अंदर मिल जाते हैं. तो एंड टिपिकली दिसंबर के लिक्विड होते हैं, तो दिसंबर अगले साल के भी आप लेंगे तो आप हेज हो जाओगे. कुछ ना कुछ एक्शन लेना ज़रूरी है. सो दिस इज़ व्हाट माय कंक्लूजन इज़ ऑफ ऑल द इवेंट्स. क्या होगा वो नहीं पता, बट कहीं ना कहीं ये रिस्क फैक्टर्स देखते हुए फॉरेन इन्वेस्टर्स ने ऑल टाइम हाई रिकॉर्ड शॉर्ट पोजीशन भारतीय बाज़ारों पे खड़ा कर दिया है, जो हिस्टोरिकली हम लोग देख के बोलते कि ये बॉटम का संकेत है, बट इस बार ये डायरेक्शनल लग रहा है. एंड जब तक हमें क्लियर कट एक बॉटम नहीं मिल जाता, बाज़ार बढ़ने लग जाए, बॉटम का संकेत मिल जाए, ब्रेकआउट्स होने लगे, तब तक अब हमें इसको एडवांस में पकड़ने की कोशिश नहीं करनी चाहिए. सो दैट्स ऑल फ्रॉम मी. थैंक यू वेरी मच एंड सी यू ऑल नेक्स्ट टाइम.